Hello and welcome to Unity 3D C Sharp Lesson 19, and this one is on for loops. And be sure that you've already watched the previous videos so that hopefully this one makes sense. What you're looking at is what we talked about on the previous video on arrays. We talked about making an arrangement or arrays for our monster objects for instantiation. I can't even pronounce it. Anyway, if you recall, this was our class that we had up here, and we were creating objects. Now, here's what's important here. Here's what's important. We've created our array. We created 51 elements, so that our last array value could be 50 because the first array value always starts at 0. All right, notice how we created a monster object. What we did is that we put the array number here and we instantiated a new object called big monster sub 1. And then we did the same thing with another monster sub 2, another monster sub 3. I know this is a review. Okay, and the way we identified each unique monster now was not by the identifier big monster, but by its array value. So anything with array value 1 belongs to one and only one monster. Anything with array value 2 belongs to a different monster. Anything with array value 3 belongs to even yet another different monster. So using arrays was another way of identifying these monsters. But when we looked at this, we said, wait, we still have to put everything in by hand. You know, what's the big deal? So what we're going to do now is we're going to instantiate, create objects, monsters, by using a for loop. Now, I want you to pay attention to this, please. Here we have a for. For is a key word in C#. And what I have inside these parentheses here, I have a data type int, which is going to have the identifier of I for integer, okay? And I'm going to start off with the value of I equal to 1. Then a semicolon, okay, separates the next thing. The next thing says I less than or equal to 50. Well, you might say, well, what does that mean? Well, it makes more sense if we go to the next step. What this, I have a semicolon here, I have I++. Now, you will recall that I++ would mean the next time I is used, increment it by 1. So the way this loop works is that it starts here at this open squiggly thing, and it ends at this ending squiggly thing. And it goes through it each and every time, incrementing I by 1 each time, and it'll keep doing it as long as I is less than or equal to 50. Why less than or equal to 50? Because look what's happening. The first time through, I is going to be equal to 1. So what did I do? I made big monster 1. I instantiated one monster. So the next time it goes through, I is equal to 2. I created another monster object, okay? And I'm going to do that, and now I can create 50 monster objects. Wow! I mean, just them like that. If I look over here, the way I had to do it, I had to do all this by hand creating these monster objects. Okay? And just to do 3 took 3 lines of code. But here, I'm doing 50 of them. Well, actually, 50 of them. And right here, that's when I create 50 different objects. Okay? Now, what I can do now is I made this, so this is a 1 the first time, this is a 1 the first time, a 1 the first time, a 1 the first time, a 1 the first time. Oops, I cheated. I added a new attribute. I added an ID attribute that's equal to I, whatever the value of I is. Now you might say, oh, Adamson, you cheated. Yes, I did, and I knew you'd catch me at it. Let's go back up here and look at the class and see what I've done. What I did is I added, I don't mean an attribute, I meant a property. I added a new property, and it's an integer, and it's called ID for identifier. And what I do is that now when I print out the monster data, I also want its ID. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is if I'm going to be creating hundreds of monsters, there's a chance that there'll be two or more monsters from the same race with exactly the same name and maybe the same age and maybe even the same health. I have no way of uniquely identifying one monster from the other. And keep in mind, we said that the way we're going to uniquely identify these monsters was by their array number right here. That's how we were going to do it. So that's what I want to do. I want to make it so that each monster has its own unique ID. In other words, the first monster will have an ID of 1. The second monster will have an ID of 2. The third monster an ID of 3, and up to monster 50, which will have an ID of 50. Now, there is a problem with this. The problem with this is that even though I'm creating 50 monsters, all of the races are going to be an orc, and all of them are going to be named Gorky, and all of them are going to have an age of 127, and all of them are going to have a health of 123. And you might say, wait a minute, Addison, that's really dumb. They should have different names, and they should have different ages, and they should have different healths. Yes, that's true. They should. But I'll show you how to do that in the next video. You're saying, promises, 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 promises. Well, I'm trying to just show you one concept at a time. Okay, so understandably, this doesn't really have a practical use because all of them are going to have the same race, name, and age and health. But it gets the concept across of why I'm using arrays. Because if I put them in a for loop, I can create all kinds of things really quickly and make each of these unique. Well, even though they're not unique here, but I'll show you how to do that. Now, what I want to do now is I want to show the monster data, but I only want to show it for the first 10 monsters. So what I did is, there's my for loop again, and there's my data type for I is 1, and now it's going to be incremented, I++. It's going to be incremented now as long as I is less than or equal to 10. I could have done it for the first 20 monsters, but just, okay, so what it's going to do now, it's going to effectively do what this here did. Remember how I did monster data, the show the monster data? That was a method for the 3 different monsters. So here I'm going to show the first time through, this will be a 1, I'll show the monster data for that one. Second time through, it'll be a 2, I'll show the monster data for that one. This will keep looping until I is no longer less than or equal to 10. So this is data for the first 10 monsters. Okay, so understanding that I added an ID into it, let's see how this works. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, I'm going to come here and come to Unity, and I've got it all set up. Let me just clear this guy here. And there it is, my monsters, and I'm going to run it, zoop, and see what happens, and bang, there they are. And if I look up here, there's my ID 1. Now, of course, the race is going to be the same, or Gorky, 127, 123, but the next ID should be different. Yeah, there it is, the ID is now 2. But of course, unfortunately, same race, same dude, right? Even though they're different objects. Okay, ID is 3. Okay, and it should go all the way to ID is 4, should go all the way to the ID is, there's 9, and there is 10. To the ID is 10. Okay, so hopefully what you learned from this one is how to use a for loop in order to do a lot of work for you, a lot of to save you from tons of coding. So in our next lesson, what we'll see is how we can generate random races, random names, random ages, and random health for each monster that we instantiate. I got it, instantiate, that's what it is. It's instantiate. And also do the same thing for the data. But this is getting cool. This is really getting cool because the concepts that you're using here will not only apply to monsters, but I can use these for treasure chests. I can use these for items in a game and what have you. It's really, really a cool concept. Okay, anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.